So Vision shared a bunch of really great in the weeds examples. I wanted to share a couple of how DataViz helps in some of the other parts of our software development process at Observable. You just had to watch Visnu to see that he was sort of learning and asking questions and iterating on the data and the viz to learn something. But that learning really is toward making better decisions and how he spends his time, maybe like what the priorities are, and this sort of like it's pervasive in everything that we do when we're writing software. So I want to show kind of just a couple examples of how it plays in. So maybe ask your question, like, how should we implement this feature? If you go to the next slide, because you're driving, right? So one of the things that we try and do is we go look at data that we already have. And so 2 engineers on the team were working on a new feature for collections. So collections is how we organize notebooks for a purpose or a definition. And we're going to work on this new aspect of collections, which is basically nesting collections within to help organize your notebooks. And so before getting started on that, we went and did some analysis. This is a notebook that Sydney and a couple other engineers worked on. And you can kind of see, like, we're trying to look at, like, how often is this happening? Like, are notebooks in multiple collections? How many of them are people keeping private versus making public? And how many people are ordering them, right? So they're trying to have a sequence. But then, okay, so now we have some understanding of how people are using collections. Well, now we're going to take that and we're going to go write the spec. And we're going to write the spec with what we've heard from users in the forum. And we're going to feed that into how we think about how collections are used by all the people on Observable. And you can kind of just, if you scroll through this, you can see, like, this is pretty typical specification. Use cases, and there's some diagrams and a schema section, but you can also see here that other developers on our team, and that's Wiltsie's comment, are actually just like raising suggestions and iterating on what's developing in the spec. So what started out with a kind of feature idea that we heard from the community led to us doing some data analysis. And then that really helped ground what was going to be in the next version of this feature. And that feature was launched by Sydney and by Kudik Washe and is in use today. So that's just, how do we use DataViz to, just inform the work that we're doing on software development, again, in the interest of like having impact on people using the product. And we don't have a lot of time, right? We're a small startup and we want to, we just want to spend our time wisely. So this is cool. This is like Figma mocks embedded in the notebook of the various design options that we were looking through. So maybe if we can go back, we have templates in Observable for our design specs. So you're kind of seeing, like, make sure we think about security, make sure we think about risks. Okay, so Visnu before, he showed tests. So everyone at Observable is on call. We are, we share responsibilities for prod on call. And so we're always trying to deploy as soon as things are ready, but sometimes things go wrong, right? So we have to figure out what's going on. And as Visnu showed, you can go check out that list, that table, right? It's super helpful to see what's going on with testing. But really, it's not, I think the thing about visualization is so intuitive. When you see, you can sort of like narrow in and prioritize where you're going to find what you're going to look at. What you see, first of all, and then what you actually take action on. And so, this is an example of Visnu wrote a DataViz on top of the GitHub API, and it's showing the status. And then when we're on call or when we're doing a deployment, we can come back and look at this. And periodically, we'll come look at this testing status over time to figure out, like, oh, okay. What do we need to make time for in terms of improving our testing of Observable? And this is the sort of thing where I think as software developers, like we're never done, right? So one of the things that we're missing that we're probably going to work on next is just a better visualization around coverage, test coverage. We're investing in a bunch of unit tests and more integration tests. And so, that would be super helpful to see what's our test coverage of the code base. Okay, so how do we inform our feature development? How do we easily see what's going on as we're maybe on call? But the next one has to do with understanding features that are influencing growth or what users are paying attention to. And so one of the things that we've been looking at, again, we're startup, we're small team, we want to use our time wisely, is trying to understand like what are the things that are really helpful that people are coming to Observable for. And what we found was that we have these events from the awesome creators in the community where notebooks get created. You can see like Tom's notebook there. You can see some of the election and coronavirus notebooks. But we wanted to see, okay, there's this idea, there's this thing of like virality, and these viral events really skew like the normal sort of day-to-day people are using Observable to do their work. So I don't know if that's going to load. But while Brian was creating this, developer on the team, that then enabled us to go back and really try and bring that virality out of understanding growth. Because it's just, there's this crazy spikes where traffic goes up, and it's awesome, right? Because there's a lot of interest. But what we're trying to understand is, are we doing the right thing for people using the platform over time? And are more people finding it helpful? So that was something where we really had to sort of dig in and look what was happening, and then take the action to have our understanding of how the community is growing, what people are coming to the platform, to be able to just have an accurate representation. This is also a great opportunity. One of the things that came away from this analysis was a way to celebrate people in the community. So when we're monitoring notebooks, it's an opportunity for us to reach out to people and say, hey, like this thing's really interesting. Can we feature it on Explore so that more people can check it out? And then the last thing that I wanted to highlight was, okay, so if we do data analysis to better inform our software development, what about after we've launched it? Has anyone heard of these things called landings? It's like, is it actually helpful for people that are using your product? And so what we try and do is after we've launched something, come back to this set of features and do some analysis to understand, okay, well, how many people are actually using this? And I think landings are really important because it gets into this sort of principle of iterative software development. So we launch something, we communicate it, people start using it. If it's valuable, they'll use it more. But everyone on the team, after we launch a feature on Observable, will create something like this, which is, this is for public comments. I don't know if all of it's going to load, but you can kind of see comment, this one that Visnu's showing is comments on private notebooks. So yeah, it looks like demo gods are not completely on our side this time. But you can see the questions that Carrie Rodden created in this notebook to try and understand, okay, what are editors doing? What are non-editors or viewers doing around comments? And what do the sort of counts look like? So this analysis, again, if you go back to the beginning, would feed in the next iteration of what we do with comments, which just is like this closed loop of understanding what's going on with what we're building. And anyone can come check these out at any time. So I guess just finally, I wanted to share what we've heard. Oh, the visual data flow one. We can't pass that one up. Toph wrote that. So visual data flow, we also call it the mini map. It's on the right-hand side of the notebook. This is something super helpful, I'm biased, in debugging, but with long notebooks, sort of orienting and figuring out like, how do you get to the cell that you need to? This was analysis that Toph did to better understand mini-map usage, where people were clicking, how frequently. Yeah, so super, super helpful. And we have more improvements coming to these features in the coming months. But before we wrap up and get to Q&A, I just wanted to just share what we've found internally I think there's this idea, you just watch Visnu do it. And, if you're checking out different DataViz on Observable, you can do it too. This is the idea of like, just keep swimming. You just can keep exploring and asking questions of the data as you're visualizing it. And because we're doing that in code, right, it's just super liberating. Also, we found in our own development that it's speeding up our iteration time. So the idea of just wrangling, testing, iterating quickly, and then sharing it with our teammates so that they can comment has just, I don't know, it's just sped things up. We get to the answer much faster than before. And the fact that we're doing this collaboratively, right, where we're all like in the notebook doing the analysis and iterating together has been, it's just kind of like a game changer, especially when there's some sort of issue with production where we're trying to debug it, and three or more of us are trying to figure out what's going on. So that idea that it's transparent. I mean, you saw how Visnu was checking out the code and iterating on the visualization, and that really helps us make better decisions, even when we're stressed out and we're trying to, come up with a solution pretty quickly. I think the other thing that I would just highlight using DataViz is it's actually fun. It's fun to be able to like interact, watch the data, see the effects of what's changing, right? Hit an issue and then like work through it. I think it really can bring this sort of greater level of understanding when we visualize our work. And I think it really can help us appreciate not just the code that we're working with or the data, but also our colleagues and their perspective when we're collaborating with them. So this is just the first of many conversations we want to have about how DataViz can help software development. And we really hope that you'll join us. We're going to have blog posts and examples from other developers in the Observable community and some future meetups. I'm going to be sharing some updates this week on more collaboration that can happen between people around DataViz.